Ghana Agbogbloshie. Some call it the most poisonous spot on our planet. Final destination for many electrical goods disposed legally or illegally. A multitude of people work here every day, surrounded by toxic fumes.
If you take the four most toxic substances, lead, arsenic, mercury, cadmium, these are all found at this site, and the levels are just too high for even human beings to live around.
Agbogbloshie's burning inferno embodies both hell and survival for many local residents.
If the fire catch this one, I go take iron make inside. I go do like that. All rubber where they come out, it go left fresh.
The question is, why are so many electronic goods imported?
We are a third developing country. We cannot manufacture even anything. We import everything.
And that's why the story begins at our own doorstep, where the average Western citizen purchases 20 kilograms of new electronic goods every year. He throws away just as much. 40% of the e-waste gets lost on the way to official waste and recycling hubs.
Raw materials are traded worldwide. It goes up and down and is somewhat speculative.
In order to profit from this, a garbage mafia has been established. 90% of African electric waste arrives from Europe and the United States by dubious roads. This documentary reveals those in the shadows and follows the smugglers' roads from Europe to Africa.
In the last container I opened, there were over 40 unannounced refrigerators.
Destination Ghana for illegal waste disposal. It's a story of hope in a place with no hope. A story that changes everything. Agbogbloshie, forecourt to hell. West Africa, Ghana. 25 million people from various ethnic groups live in the West African state. Compared to neighboring countries, Ghana is relatively wealthy, and a growing number of its residents can afford imported goods from Europe. It's estimated that annually 1.5 million tons of electronic appliances are illegally imported from the EU. But what happens to these goods once they are here? To find that out, we've equipped a defective fridge with a tracking device, which leads us from a European port directly to Ghana by container ship. The deepwater port of Tema lies 30 kilometers north of the capital Accra. According to our tracking device, our faulty fridge from Europe arrived via the usual smuggling routes in Africa, declared at customs as valueless goods.
Want to find out how waste even arrives here? Obviously non-functional devices, even though that's not allowed. The laws state that only functional devices may be exported.
Tema Harbor is a central transition point for imports and exports. Many large European shipping companies regularly call at this port. Sailings to Tema also start in Hamburg Harbor, where we located our fridge the last time. The whole harbor is a restricted area. Filming and photography are strictly forbidden here. Apparently, journalists are not welcome. In spite of official requests months in advance, we do not get permission to film, not even on site. A couple of kilometers from the restricted area, we encounter some truck drivers waiting for their cargo. We ask them if they also transport fridges from Europe.
We drive across Ghana. Sometimes from here, Ghana to Burkina, Niger, Mali. We carry any goods. Most of the time, we carry container, and the one they load on pallets. TV, iron, and these kind of home gadgets. They banned fridges. So the home use fridge, they banned it.
But is the ban actually enforced? A truck driver who regularly receives goods from container ships arriving from Europe and the USA passes a mobile phone video with delicate information on to us. The film shots on site show that old cars and car parts are imported. But according to the Basel Convention, importing scrap-ready vehicles is illegal. Just like fridges, old cars should be confiscated or destroyed upon arrival in Tema. Apparently, there are ways to bypass these import regulations.
You see, the government is trying to discourage people from bringing old fridges from Europe. The port of entrance here, when you want to clear the goods, they block them right from here. It's not only the fridges alone. We also discourage a couple of things. If cars are over 10 years old, they classify them as overage and they block them. Otherwise, you pay double duty, but you cannot stop everything entirely. Sometimes some people take bribes and they allow you to go with them.
We don't have any proof of corruption, but shortly afterwards, we again receive a signal from our fridge and follow it. It leads to the busy city of Accra. Apparently, our defective fridge has passed port custom controls without problems. Our tracking device reacts to movement. Only when it's being reloaded or moving jerkily, we are informed about the current whereabouts of our prepared fridge.
The last signal came a few hours ago. We're hoping that we find the fridge there. Hopefully it'll become apparent soon. However, as we've been stuck in a traffic jam for over an hour now, we're not moving.
Our driver, Joseph, is an environmental activist and has a clear idea where we will find our fridge. While following the GPS signal, we're passing the La Paz district of the city. Left and right from the main street, fridges, washing machines, and freezers are offered for sale. A giant second-hand market for used goods from Europe. E-waste expert Joseph Sikartny is working on an environmental study. He wants to find out how many of these used appliances are brought into the country as electronic waste from Europe on container ships, and which part of them are actual used goods.
How do you actually get these fridges?
They are imported and the devices are always delivered to us via shipping containers. Thing is though, out of 35, 5 don't work.
In what way don't they work?
Well, sometimes they have run out of cooling fluid. If this is the case, we can refill that. However, some have a broken motor though, and then we have to get rid of them. We can't repair that.
The dealer is not allowed to test the goods before purchase. He has to take what is offered to him, sold as seen. There's much talk in town about the plans of the government, the impending import ban on used fridges. The Ghanaians are becoming aware of the rapid growth of toxic mountains of waste, but many dealers feel their means of existence is under threat.
We cannot manufacture even anything. We import everything. So we are the individuals who are trying to help build this nation. For instance, somebody may be at the remote area, he cannot purchase a brand new television. For now, as you know, the television, the boss one is over now. It's LED, LCDs and other things that is coming. And if you compare one price from Europe to Africa here, you cannot afford to pay.
An import ban on its own will not solve the waste problems, because new products also have a limited lifespan. To get a grip on Ghana's waste problems, waste handling has to change radically. It's assumed that 1.5 million tons of illegally imported electronic goods include 400 tons of highly toxic electronic waste, around 5% of the total volume. We receive a final GPS signal from our fridge. Final destination, Agbogbloshie. Upon arrival, we almost get the shock of our lives. We find our defective fridge from Germany here. The story starts 3 months earlier, in Hamburg. Our prepared fridge starts its 7,700-kilometer journey. We return to Europe. With 617 kilos of waste per capita, Germany is the #1 frontrunner. 136 kilograms over the European average. At the same time, Germans are seen as world champions in waste disposal and role models for recycling. Almost 15% of our waste results from private households. It disappears almost unnoticed as an army of garbage men daily ensures its removal. 900 of them in Hamburg alone.
Per shift, we'll usually load somewhere between 15 and 20 tons of pure domestic waste. Thanks to recycling, general rubbish is getting less and less. And organic bins are really on the rise anyway. By now, citizens ensure that there's only organic waste in them. It's been well received.
But household waste only constitutes 15% of the total volume. The majority is industrial and commercial waste. The car is Germany's most popular consumer product. Every year, 3.2 million new cars are registered in the country, almost as many as are discarded. The little notes left on our windshield in the morning, promising the very best price for scrap-ready cars. Almost all of us know them. But how do these seemingly interesting offers come about? And where do the cars really end up? And why are more and more car dealers specializing in buying up used cars ready for the scrap heap? Reporter Matthew conducts an experiment. We're filming with a hidden camera. None of the dealers approached wanted to speak to us officially. After a short inspection, the first price negotiations begin.
In this country, it's unsellable. I'd take it as is for 350. Yep, I'd take it.
350?
Yep, it's rusted all over. Everywhere rust. I'd take it for export, like I said. As seen, no guarantee I'll export it.
The offer does not convince us. According to the dealer, we have the wrong car. Japanese brands would be in much higher demand, fetching up to 1,000 euros, even in bad condition. The average European buys 20 kilos worth of electrical goods per year, at the same time throwing away about the same amount. Only half of the discarded old equipment ends up in local recycling centers. The rest disappears in unknown ways. Electronic waste mostly finds its way to Africa by container ship, although electronic waste disposal is subject to strict regulations.
In Germany, we have an electro law, which binds manufacturers to take their devices back, similar to our recycling system for casing, where the manufacturers collect the packaging. The borrowers are legally required to set up collection points, and one of these is, for example, the recycling plant. It's here that all the waste materials are collected, sorted, and shipped to the manufacturers, and they reuse it then, all as part of the return scheme.
Only 50% of German electronic waste is recycled and reused in the country itself. More and more often, shady gangs of scrap salvagers collect the electronic waste before it can enter the recycling centers. We would like to know what these dubious salvagers really plan to do with this electronic waste. That's why we're equipping an old fridge with a powerful tracking device. To ensure the fridge is declared as electrical waste, we cut the connection cables. A marking will help us to clearly identify the defective fridge later. The export would be legal if the fridge were repaired. We leave the site through the rear gate and drive with a neutral car to the entrance of the recycling center. Hidden cameras record the events. According to the Basel Convention, defective goods are not allowed for export.
Are you going to fix it?
Yes, going to Serbia.
Serbia, okay.
Germany and Serbia have signed the International Environmental Agreement.
One of the things we don't like to see is when customers pick up electronic goods, anything from a washing machine to a refrigerator or television, from the curb in front of the recycling centers before we get the chance to dispose of them. No one guarantees in this case a fully law-abiding disposal.
We want to know where our defective fridge will end up. The tracking device leads us to an industrial area near the port of Hamburg. Here, as far as the eye can see, fridges, washing machines, and freezers are offered for sale. But are we dealing with electric waste or a huge second-hand market in used electrical equipment? We pretend that we would like to buy a fridge and film the conversation with a hidden camera.
I thought the devices would be operational and for sale.
No, they don't work. They're all broken.
I understand. And where are they going? To Africa?
To Africa, yeah.
Okay.
Exporting defective fridges to Africa is strictly forbidden. We would like to know why the export ban is circumvented. When the camera team reveals itself, the situation escalates.
Are you with the police?
No, a journalist.
Get rid of that camera or I'll break everything.
Well, we just want to...
Get rid of that camera or I'll batter it to pieces.
We just want to report about the fridges and what happens with them. This is a public road. We're allowed to shoot here.
The harsh reaction to our appearance shows that the dealers know very well that they're making themselves liable to prosecution when exporting electrical waste. Out of precaution, the camera team withdraws. Even our leftover waste is worth a lot of money. From 2005, waste is no longer used for landfill in this country, but thermally recycled. Nationwide, there are 31 waste incineration plants. On an annual basis, they destroy almost 46 million tons of waste. Hamburg City also covers a major part of its energy demand through residential waste. The incinerators burn around 21 tons of waste an hour to keep the energy production going.
The lion's share of the warmth is delivered to Hamburg's district heating system, around 700,000 megawatt hours. In summer, the base load is definitely supplied from the waste incineration plant here in Hamburg. Our combustion temperature is, on average, 1,000 degrees Celsius in the combustion chamber, and we need to maintain at least 800 degrees to destroy especially dioxins non-toxically.
The waste-to-energy plant runs 24 hours a day. By optimizing the combustion, the plant's control room ensures that there is no development of smoke gas, nor of cancer-causing dioxins. At the end of the year, what remains is almost 50,000 tons of slag and around 8,000 tons of ashes.
The dust-like furnace ashes are driven into a silo, containing high amounts of dioxins and heavy metals, which is then transported by silo truck and deposited underground in salt mine. The slag is reusable and is used in roadworks as a bearing layer under the concrete.
But it's not only household waste that harbors unexpected riches. Almost all waste we come across on a daily basis contains valuable resources. This also applies to old electric equipment. One of Germany's biggest electric waste recycling companies is situated in Lüstadt, near Mannheim. Looking at the huge mountains of once expensive electronic goods, it soon becomes obvious that this waste is particularly valuable.
If you want to produce new metals these days, for example a ton of steel, then you need about 200 tons of iron ore. This ore must be gained from the ground. But if you give us 7 tons of washing machines, we can also make you a ton of steel.
The more sought after the raw materials, the more money can be made from them. But not all used electrical goods are profitable. High product numbers and environmental standards in Germany make illegal waste export abroad attractive.
The reason why used electronics are exported into developing countries is very simple. It's a matter of cost. Let's take, for example, a television. Half of it is glass, which must be disposed of as it contains lead. The dismantling and disposal costs are actually bigger than any potential profit. Now, in a country where these costs are minor or non-existent, where the glass is just thrown into any old hole in the ground, then you're saving a lot of money. This difference between the prices in Europe and the profit made in developing countries is so big that the transport is easily paid for.
The profitable side of electronic waste recycling. Mobile phones and circuit boards in particular contain the most valuable resources. 1 ton of mobile phone waste can contain up to 2.5 kilograms of silver and 250 grams of gold.
Handys sind auf kleinstem Raum wertvolle Metalle.
A mobile is packed tightly with valuable metals. We have golden pins on the circuit board, for example, under the keys. And the rest of the components also contain valuable metals, such as tantalum or palladium.
Rohstoffe werden
Raw materials are traded worldwide. Specific exchange markets exist, for example, the London Metal Exchange. It's just like a stock market. It goes up and down and is somewhat speculative.
runter und ist teilweise sehr spekulativ.
The electronic industry alone requires around 300 tons of gold a year for its production. It's clear both the legal and illegal trade in scrap are booming. This affects recyclers of cars that are not allowed to be exported. One of Germany's largest car recyclers is near Hamburg. It's not only illegal gangs that make dealers' lives difficult. The battle for sought-after car scrap is becoming harder and harder. Demand from abroad makes it difficult for entrepreneurs. Annual turnovers decline.
Die Exporteure können deswegen bessere Preise bieten, weil sie eben auch diesen
The reason why the exporters can offer better prices than us is because they don't have the same costs as we do. We foster the correct disposal of these vehicles. This means always following strict regulations, unlike the exporters. An exporter can buy a car for 100 to 200 euros and ship it. So these are his only costs. In Germany, close to 1.5 million vehicles are disposed yearly, and out of these 1.5 million, about 500,000 end up at registered German plants, at least according to certificates of destruction, which are mandatory when scrapping a car. So that's a considerable number of cars with unknown fates.
Autos, wo der Verbleib unbekannt ist.
The dealer makes most of his profit from selling spare parts. The old cars may only be stripped down after all environmentally dangerous components have been removed. Catalysts that contain the precious metal platinum belong to the most valuable parts. In the end, the stripped bodyworks are sold to shredding companies.
Wir verkaufen so alle 1,5 bis 2 Monate.
Every 1.5 to 2 months, we sell approximately 4,500 tons to the wrecking yard owner. After the scrapyard worker has picked up the vehicle, it's crushed to bits. Then the individual materials are separated.
Voneinander separiert.
There are steel waste, cast iron, and plastic containing components. So these are all separated, and then the wrecking yard owner sells the raw materials onto manufacturers.
Weiter an verarbeitende Unternehmen.
Prosperity waste is a popular export article. Trade in scrap-ready vehicles also booms. Every year, hundreds of thousands of cars are exported abroad, just from Germany. Many used car dealers in Berlin have specialized in export. Nigerian Lawrence Ugbo has been working in the export trade for years. Once a week, his old cars are picked up by a transport company and shipped to Africa via the port of Hamburg.
Lawrence?
Yeah? Hello.
Where do these cars go to?
They are all going to Africa.
Can you show me?
The ports. This is Tema, Takoradi. These are some of the ports. We have more volumes being shipped to West African region, a lot of shipments there. Individuals, they come and they buy cars and then they ship for personal use. Why there are some people like also business people who comes to buy car, they are car dealers. They buy also and then they resell in Africa. Yeah.
To maximize profits, Lawrence Ugbo ships the old cars, which only have a scrap value in this country, filled with electronic goods. A lucrative side business to help cover the high transport costs, as freight costs are charged at a flat rate per car. Scrap car trade can make a lot of money.
Sell these goods to be able to cover up for the transportation and everything, you know. So by loading the cars, they have, by the time the car is cleared from the port, they also sell these goods to cover up for the expenses, you know, which they have incurred during this whole transaction. To ship a car to Ghana would cost 400 euros for a normal saloon car. It costs a lot to fix a car here in Germany. It's expensive. So when it's faulty, sometimes they buy it. It's cheaper to repair it in Africa.
Transporting old cars to the Third World has been a mass business for a long time. German vans and Japanese brands are especially in demand. We would like to find out who pulls the strings and where the old European cars and the electronic waste really end up. We follow the trail in the port of Hamburg. In Germany's largest container port, thousands of tons of goods are handled every second. Illegal electronic waste is also exported from here. For police and customs, it's like searching for the needle in the haystack. To ensure that the waste smugglers will not get the upper hand in the end, individual containers are inspected on a random basis.
Often goods are registered as so-called flea market goods, whereby there are so many flea market goods in these containers, I don't believe that much is ever actually sold. There are definitely containers that arouse the suspicion that someone is looking to hide their true shipment. In the last container I opened, there were over 40 unannounced refrigerators.
Often what is declared as jumble sale fare is in reality illegally exported electrical waste. In Hamburg alone, almost 10 million containers are dispatched every year. The 4 officers of the Environmental Crime Squad carry out around 130 inspections a year. And only in a fraction of the cases, defective electronic equipment is confiscated. It's an almost hopeless battle.
Regardless of where we are, with this kind of harbor, we can only carry out spot checks. Obviously, with spot checks, we can end up with the one container which is in order. And that's how containers get through. We can't check every container, and neither can customers. It's just not feasible.
It's estimated that annually 1.5 million tons of electric goods are illegally exported from the EU. 400 tons of this is thought to be highly toxic electronic waste. After weeks of radio silence, the unexpected happens. Our prepared fridge signals once again. The signal leads us to the container port in Hamburg.
I've just received a new GPS signal, which displays that the fridge has ended up at the Hamburg harbor. We're latching onto the signal now and driving there to see if we can find our fridge.
Our suspicions have been confirmed. The signal leads us to a large container ship with destination Ghana. The cargo ship will travel 3 weeks before reaching the port of Tema. We decide to fly to Ghana to see where our electronic waste will actually end up. Back in Ghana, the illegal imports enter the country via the port of Tema, 30 kilometers north of the capital Accra. According to the Basel Convention, scrap-ready vehicles or fridges should be confiscated or destroyed upon arrival. Apparently, there are ways and means to bypass the import regulations. Final destination, Agbogbloshie. It is from here that our fridge sends its last GPS signal. The sky is clouded with dark black smoke, taking one's breath away. A multitude of people work surrounded by toxic fumes.
The last signal came from somewhere in this area, which is relatively accurate, and there is simply fire everywhere. Where electrical waste is being burned, we can surmise that this is where our fridge from Germany ended up.
In Agbogbloshie, on the outskirts of the capital Accra, huge amounts of our prosperity waste are disposed of on a plot of 6 square kilometers. The waste dump of Agbogbloshie is one of the most toxic places in the world. Around 8,000 people live on this swimming mass of toxic waste. Many have even built their huts in the middle of this burning hell, because this is where money can be earned. 17-year-old Haruna has been working here for 9 years.
Every day when I come here for work, maybe I will get just 20,000, or I will get 150, or I will get 10 cedi. As soon as I get a larger amount, I send it to my father and mother, who live in the north. I also have a little brother, so the money is also used to send him to school. But I don't get enough of everything. They don't give anything away, so at the end, we suffer.
Yeah, so I did where I suffer. Yeah.
Our defective fridge with tracking device has sent its last GPS signal from here. Where the fridge should be standing, a group of young people is burning electronic waste to get the valuable raw materials.
If the fire catches
If the fire catches this one, I will shake it like this, and all the rubber will come off, leaving copper really fresh.
you go left fresh.
Every day, Haruna is enveloped by the highly toxic smoke. The foam isolation of old fridges is used as fire accelerator. Close by, 2 environmental activists do their daily round in their battle against the toxic waste.
15% of all electronic imports that come into the country came in as junk. There is also another 30% that come in broken form but can be repaired and reused. Now, if you add a 15 to this 30%, you are getting about 45% of broken electronic gadgets that come into the country. Almost half of all imports are illegal.
The activists regularly take soil samples to document the dimensions of the environmental catastrophe in Ghana. Burning electronic waste generates cancer-causing dioxins and heavy metals. The scrap workers in Agbogbloshie know that they're risking their health, but most of them don't have any alternative. Haruna also suffers from the toxic clouds of smoke created by burning plastics.
They pay me sometimes.
It pains me sometimes because of the smoke. The smoke is very hot, and the burning rubber sometimes enters your lungs.
You go enter inside. Sometimes you go do.
Then you go. So because of the copper and the chemicals inside, I don't want to come here. I suffer here every day, and I have to come back.
I suffer here every day I come back.
Haruna ignores the pains because no one else will offer him almost 500 euros per month.
I will go give my brothers.
My brother is a very good salesman, so I give him the goods. For one cedi or 50,000. He sells them for me.
So I will do yeah.
Many slum inhabitants move to Accra from the poor north of Ghana in search of work and prosperity. But for most, sooner or later, life in one of the most toxic places in the world turns into a struggle for survival. There are no statistics that describe how high the cancer rate is or how many people die from lung cancer here, but most of them don't get older than 45 years.
We can estimate about 6,000 people who are working directly in here. And then there are other people who are also dependent on what is happening, like women and children who are selling water, food, etc. So the area entirely could be heading towards 8,000 people.
Children also work on the toxic waste dump. Several hundred in Agbogbloshie alone. Like 13-year-old Fifi, instead of going to school, they ensure their family's incomes. He searches the toxic ground with a magnet to find small metal parts and collects what the older ones have left.
My dream is to have a car or a motorbike. Sometimes I look at the motor races over in Teshi. Yeah, a motorbike. That'd be great. They make bikes, cars and motorbikes from the metal. When I'm big, I want one for myself. That's my biggest dream.
For 3 years, day after day, Fifi has been working in the blazing heat of the scrap heap. Payment is per weight. The more metal he finds, the more he earns. For 2 kilos of scraps, he receives 18 pesos, which is 4 euro cents. On a good day, he earns the equivalent of 1.60 euro. 150 children work for the middleman who buys the metal. He makes big profits. Every day he buys around 4,000 kilos of metal scraps and sells them on to his customers for much more.
They take some of the metal to do iron rods.
They take some of the metals to make new things. Container plates, trotros, these kind of things. Yeah, it's good business. If you sell around 4,500 kilograms, you can get 6,000 or more cedis as profit.
6,000 or more than that, 6,000 profit on it.
The middleman receives the equivalent of 1,400 euros for 4.5 tons of metal scraps. In Ghana, it's a small fortune. But the big money is made by the companies processing the metal scraps.
There are the scrap dealers, there are middlemen, and then the companies that do the recycling. For example, there are metal smelters in Ghana. And so some type of the scraps that they obtain here are sent directly to them for smelting. They also make some profit out of these people. But then the guy who buys and sends to the factory mostly makes the profit out of the scrap activities.
A large part of the metal extracted is exported to Europe and the USA, where it is, amongst other things, also used in the car industry. Later, they often end up being sold to Africa again as used cars, because no cars are manufactured in this country, and new cars are as good as unaffordable. German vans are particularly popular, especially the older makes that are easy to repair.
I like the old type because it's not electronics. But the electronics ones are started from 2000 model, that is a CDI. That gives them a lot of problems. The injectors, you can't repair them. It's very hard to service, so you can't service, and then it's very expensive. The ones over 10 years are overaged in Ghana, so you pay penalty on that. Some are 5% penalty, some are 20% penalty. So the taxes are very high.
This van also originates from Europe. It arrived in Ghana only 2 days ago. Now it is to be sold. German makes are very popular with the Ghanaians. They have the reputation of being robust and long-lasting.
How much is the price?
45 last.
Oh, we need to come down the price.
40? No, 40.
It's 40,000 is too much.
Oh, it's
come down
okay.
small.
It's okay. Look at the car.
The car is very neat. I like the car, but the price.
No.
The price.
40,000. Okay.
For an incredible 9,000 euros, the van changes owners. A large part of the price is due to transport costs, customs fees, and taxes. The buyer wants to convert the old van and use it as a share taxi.
This one takes 23 passengers. So everybody wants the one who can take more passengers than the other cars. You know, we have Toyota in the oven, but they can't take a lot of passengers like the German ones. So everybody likes to take this car.
Vans converted into share taxis are the main means of transportation in Ghana. Hundreds of share taxis are waiting around the big bus stations to pick up passengers. Andraman's Trotro has been in operation for an incredible 23 years, and he also swears by German technology.
The engine is very strong. That's why people like the Mercedes. A Mercedes-Benz engine causes no problems. Other engines, 3-4 years, dead.
Most Trotros are quite old, an average of around 20 to 30 years. In Europe, they would have been classed as old-timers ages ago. Every year, tens of thousands of used cars are exported to Ghana from Europe. Most scrapped vans are converted to share taxis. When they arrive in Ghana, the discarded vans are often in a desolate state. Whole city districts have specialized in converting the old cars.
He came here as a condemned car.
If the car comes here and is completely broken, everything is broken, then we rebuild the car completely. If only one side is spoiled and needs to be redone, we can do it in 1 week. But if it is too much, the whole car is spoiled, then we can do it in 2 months or 3 months.
2 months or 3 months.
Necessity is the mother of invention. Ghana's Trotro specialists turn the European scrap cars into drivable vehicles with the simplest means. First, they deal with the bodywork. The older makes are very popular because they're easier to repair.
If they bring the
car to me and brought it at the harbour, there are often rusty plates, so we mould the plate anew and weld it back on.
Then we mold the plate and we weld it back.
There are no laws on occupational safety here. Non-insulated electrical cables lie on the floor. Instead of safety shoes, the men wear toe slippers. Sunglasses are meant to protect the eyes during welding work. A lot of resourcefulness and imagination are also required for the construction of the interiors.
If it is container, there is no seat inside.
If it was a container, then there are no seats inside, so we have to make them new. We have to go to the market in Tema and buy new pipes. Then we bend it, cut it into pieces and weld it together. After we have done our part, we send it to an upholsterer. They put the leather on, then they bring it back to us and we fix up the inside.
Then we fix this inside.
With the simplest resources, Ghana's most popular means of transport is created from a scrap-ready European van. From scrap heap to trotro, the second life of old European cars. Illegally imported electronic waste does not find a happy ending in Ghana. Return to Agbogbloshie, the most toxic place on Earth. In Ghana, electronic waste is burnt on illegal waste dumps. A whole region has been contaminated. For years, environmental activist Atiemo Samson has been taking soil samples in the contaminated area. He also sends these to Europe.
Normally, I don't like these bigger particles because there is not much in them. But it is the finer ones that contain the pollutant.
It makes him very angry that more and more illegal electronic waste reaches Ghana.
E-waste has a lot of toxic substances in them: lead, arsenic, mercury, cadmium. These are all found in e-waste in very, very high quantities. Lead can actually affect neurological development of children a lot. And cadmiums are known to cause a lot of cancers, mercury as well. When you are burning plastics, you are producing some organic chemicals called dioxins and furans. And these dioxins are cancer-causing. And so the poison is so unacceptable. The levels are just too high for even human beings to live around.
We are making a side trip to Europe to have the samples tested. We want to know how high the concentration of toxic substances really is. In the Berlin Institute for Environmental Analytics, the research focus lies on finding heavy metals. Because apart from mercury, cadmium, and arsenic, burning electronic waste also generates highly toxic lead. What are the health consequences from our prosperity waste for the people who work daily on the toxic waste dump to secure their existence?
Wir haben nach der Lagerrichtlinie ein
According to our policies, we shouldn't be seeing more than 700 milligrams per kilo. We've measured in the sample over 25,000 milligrams per kilo. This concentration of lead is extremely unusual. I can't off the top of my head remember having ever seen these kinds of results. It's known, of course, that lead is poisonous, acting on the blood, nerves and kidney. Now the health effects are dependent upon how far you take it up into your body. And we have seen that the sample is very quick to release fine particles, which makes it very hard to avoid uptake.
In Europe, strict limits apply to heavy metals. The sample must be disposed of via a hazardous waste plant. A glimpse behind the scenes of a Hamburg hazardous waste incineration plant shows how treatment of highly toxic waste is officially maintained in Germany. Here, everything is burnt that is not accepted by incineration plants for normal household waste. Over 900 dangerous substances of all kinds go through the plant.
Our main clients are industrial, mainly chemical companies, paint coatings companies, bulk goods, waste from the cosmetics industry. Our main market is in Germany. We do, however, also have many clients across Europe, worldwide even. And the reason for this is easy. Germany and Europe have a very high standard of disposal regulations.
But also in Europe, disposal companies declare toxic waste deliveries incorrectly to save costs. To find out what the garbage really contains, the hazardous waste is tested for its chemical composition before it's burnt. Only in this way the plant can ensure that there will be no explosion in the furnace.
We start with a flame reaction test, we measure the pH value, try multiple reactions out, and once all these have been completed, we have fully screened the waste. In case a value doesn't match regulations, we have to contact the waste provider. In the worst case scenario, we have to reject it.
Official trade in German waste is also lucrative. Turnovers in the region of 3-digit millions are not unusual. The waste materials are transported into the furnaces in big wagons, or, if extremely dangerous, in barrels. Highly toxic smoke gases formed during incineration have to be purified in a multi-stage process. Apart from ashes, also large amounts of highly toxic slag are generated.
That's where the drums, which we get rid of completely, or feed to the oven, produce metals and salts, which are left over. Because the majority of our slag comes from hazardous waste, it contains a base ingredient of heavy metals. We have around 40,000 tons of this, our largest remainder, 40 to 50,000 even. Ultimately, this slag is then transported to an above-ground hazardous waste depot.
But part of the hazardous waste never makes it to the disposal process. Instead, smugglers bring it into Africa as electronic waste, often declared as jumble sale fare. It's estimated that recycling European electronic waste generates a commercial value of 300 million euros in Ghana. An important economic factor ensuring a daily income for many people. Accra, just in Ghana's capital alone, 8,000 people make a living from European electronic waste. Many young men come from the poor north of the country to Accra. They move through the streets of the capital with their carts in search of recyclables. Kofi is one of them. He's been working as a scrap collector for 5 years. Environmental protection is of little interest to these people in Africa who are fighting to survive.
How much will you give me? I want 12 Ghana cedis.
No, let me give you 10.
10 Ghana cedis for this?
Yeah.
Okay, give me the money.
Kofi pays the equivalent of 2.5 euros for a broken CRT television and wants to sell it on to a middleman for 4 euros. His daily income is often a matter of luck. Ghana does not have a comprehensive state-organized waste disposal process. A large part of the waste is deposited on dump sites. The scrap collectors go from door to door and mostly buy defective electronic goods containing high-quality metals.
I come here for money.
I come here for the money. I've seen so many of my friends coming here and making it. Now they're buying cars, building houses. It's good to become a scrap buyer. I'd rather be a scrap buyer because if I take a truck, pull it 2 or 4 miles and don't find a seller, I have to bring it back and sometimes still pay for the truck. So this way I lose out a lot. Sometimes I don't even get anything.
Worldwide, up to 50 million tons of electronic waste is generated every year. A large part of it ends up in Africa. In the beginning, old computers were declared as development aid. Since then, the stream of garbage keeps growing. The valuable raw materials themselves are sold to the countries where they once started their journey. At the end of the day, Kofi sells all his scrap to a dealer and hopes he will get a good price.
White people from Tema, they pay plenty price.
White people from Tema, they pay very good prices. If we buy metal for 1.5 million and take it there, they will give us 2 million. If we buy aluminium, we pay 8 million for it, bring it to Tema, and they give us 900 cedis for 1 ton. So you have 100 cedis profit.
100 cedis for your own.
Scrap collector Kofi earned the equivalent of 10 euros today. This is an average daily wage for him. In Ghana, this represents a higher than average income. Sooner or later, our prosperity waste from Europe will also end up on the dump of Agbogbloshie, already used for disposing electronic waste for 20 years. The once fertile land is now one of the most contaminated places on Earth. A toxic cocktail of heavy metals contaminates the soil and will ultimately end up in the food chain.
A lot of the metals are exported to Western countries. Recently, the government of Ghana banned exportation of some of the scraps. Steel, aluminium were all banned. So those type of scraps are meant to feed the local smelting industry. I am looking forward to a day where the activities here will be lifted from the ground and then operate in an environmentally sound manner. I believe the area should be transformed into a standardized recycling center. For now, no, I'm not happy at all.
Recently, the Ghana government issued stricter laws regarding the import of electronic waste. The import should be forbidden in general. In spite of this ban, the supplies will keep coming as the consumer frenzy in wealthy countries keeps increasing. There is no simple solution to the problem. But one thing is for sure, every one of us is responsible for the way in which our uninhibited consumerism affects the lives of other people in a globalized world.